And it's almost like, you have one good friend that comes to mind, and her husband, he did it, and he thought he was helping his family, right? That he didn't, and it's so unfortunate, right? Because a baby didn't get to grow up with their dad, and he'll never even know his dad. And the guys that choose not to commit suicide, they are choosing a life that could be really suffering, unfortunately. And I hate that, because I've seen the guys that suffer from not committing suicide. And you say, thank you for not committing suicide. And then what do we do? Like, how do we help them?
We make it harder for them.
We make it harder for them. And, it's so sad. And so it's like quality of life.
Yeah.
The VA, these anti-suicide campaigns are fantastic. I never want to have to hear about another, suicide again. But what's the campaign to help them when they choose not to commit suicide?
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. So as you can see, we're broadcasting on location in Jacksonville, Florida, celebrating yet again America's 250th anniversary, along with Americans' Prosperity and Concerned Veterans for America. We're in front of the USS Orlick, which was in operation in the U.S. Navy from 1945 till 1982, and then it was in the Turkish Navy, which is kind of cool. But here at now museum, we're going to get a chance to go tour it, and we're super excited about that. But our theme for this America 250th anniversary is recognizing veterans and all the great service that they've done to build this nation, preserve our freedom. And but our guest now that we have is has dedicated her life to helping veterans sort out a lot of the issues that they unfortunately have to face when they come back from service. And so I want to welcome Kaitlin Colegate, who's joining us and has been fighting for veterans and assisting them navigating kind of the VA system and other things. So Kaitlin, welcome. Thanks for joining us on a windy, beautiful day here in Florida.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
This weather's good, though. It's
a lot better than, I live in the Chicago area, and this sure beats that right now.
Yes.
But what I wanted to ask you, how did you get interested in veterans issues? It was through your husband, am I right?
Yeah, through my husband, I started really getting involved. But I think I've always kind of been interested in supporting our military and being patriotic. I mean, we grew up with a lot of military in my family, and I just love this country. And then when I met my husband, who did 22 in the Marines, I started learning about all these different issues that our veterans face when they come home or when they get out of the military. And I just started taking one step and figuring out what to do next. Yeah.
Well, we have this campaign right now with America's Prosperity called the One Small Step campaign. And what it's about is everybody who's made a difference in our nation had to take an initial step. And, there's so many people, just millions of people throughout history and currently who got activated in some way and are trying to make their community better, their state better, the whole nation. And so we want to encourage people to do that in this 250th year of our nation. So, I'm sure you saw some of what your husband was dealing with. I believe 7 tours.
Yeah,
That's
7
amazing.
tours post 9/11, and then so he had 1 tour in the early 90s in Desert Storm, and so most of his last decade in the Marines, he was deployed. And he was an officer at that time, but he was he was enlisted and then commissioned.
Wow.
He was one that wanted to be in everything. Get your head split open, get stitched up. When can I get back? When can I get back in the fight? And so when he got out, it was a lot of, and that was early enough where the VA really was still trying to figure out, what do we do with these guys that come back? Because when guys came back compared to Vietnam, compared to OIF, OEF, they came back at a 16-to-1 ratio. So the VA is getting thousands and thousands more of alive and healthy guys that are coming back from war.
Yeah.
And what do we do with these guys?
So it was overwhelming the VA.
100%.
I had never heard that.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's in a God, I cannot remember the book. Oh, I'm gonna butcher that if I try. But yeah, it was just because combat medicine got better, our technology got better. We look at even a double amputee just re-enlisted in the Marine Corps yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. And so our technology and our healthcare is just so much better. And so more guys came home, which thank God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They at least got to come home and be with their families and have, a life after the military. But what kind of life do they really have after the military?
So your husband ran into some difficulties with the VA, right?
Yes.
In denials and all that.
Yeah.
What maybe characterize that for us and take us through how you started to see firsthand
For sure.
some of the challenges and then what you decided to do about it.
Yeah. So for the first couple of years he got out, he knew something was wrong with him, right? But when you have like a highly intelligent Marine Corps officer get out and he's functioning, right? He can brush his teeth and he can go to the bathroom and he can feed himself. They're like, okay, well, what's wrong with you, right? Like you're talking and you're intelligent. And so he started applying for the, disability and things like that and getting denied. And it's this, unfortunately, and I do support the VA. Unfortunately, sometimes it comes down to it's this kind of game of like, you need this and this person needs this, but this person wouldn't require it. And I think a lot of times what happened with him specifically, they get so frustrated. They're already dealing with a huge life transition when they retire or if they get back from war. And the last thing they need to do is go do some bureaucratic paperwork.
Sure.
And so he knew something was wrong and they just kind of kept tossing him from this doctor to this doctor. And unfortunately, what happens in the VA sometimes, this doctor can't talk to this doctor. It should be able to happen, but it doesn't. And so, this doctor would give medications for this that would counteract this. And no one was really speaking to each other, which doesn't help the paperwork side of it. And so we end up doing after years of being frustrated, and mind you, he's not getting disability at this point, but he can't work, hiring somebody to help us with that process. And that is a very expensive process.
So hiring someone to help you navigate the government-funded guaranteed health care that you've earned because you served our nation.
Correct.
That's awful.
Yes.
That's awful.
And so even though he was able to be seen through the VA, getting a VA claim it's a whole different process. And it was early enough where I think I guess we were still in war, so it's 2012. They didn't really know what to do, right? This is the first time you're having thousands and thousands and thousands of combat vets come back. And so we end up hiring somebody to get that. So now you're 100%, right? You're getting your check and you can see a doctor. But where I came into the picture was you're not seeing the doctor because the wait times this is before the Community Care Act.
Yeah.
And so the wait times are ridiculous. People were literally dying because of wait times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And then what happens is your wait time, you may have a 90-day period and that may expire. So what happens if you don't get to see somebody in that 90 days? You start all over.
Oh.
And so that was really interesting when I came into it because I was like, why can't you just go to the doctor? And he's like, well, that's not really how it works. And I was literally astonished when I would start to make appointments and they would say, okay, we can get you in 5 to 6 months. And I'm like, what do you mean you can get me into neurology in 5 to 6 months? He has 5 to 7 migraines a week. And so what they do is they give you medication and then they tell you we're going to get you into an appointment. We probably did this for 2 to 3 years before I was like, something has to stop.
Wow.
When you're dealing with constant migraines and nerve pain where it starts to affect your daily life, Sure. And what we would run into was they'd be asked, well, can you mow your lawn, for example? Well, sure, he can mow his lawn. He's a 22-year Marine Corps combat veteran. He's going to do whatever he needs to get done for his family. But it takes him 3 days to mow the lawn because he's exhausted.
Oh, wow.
I'll do it 30 minutes here and then I'll do another 30 minutes, And it's just really frustrating when they ask you those activities questions and he's not just going to sit on a couch and not do anything for the rest of his life. And the wait times were a big one. The Community Care Act passed and that helped a little bit. But then what is happening currently and what I still run into today, and we're blessed because we've figured out some little loopholes like calling a congressman every single time we need an appointment. But we shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to call the congressman every time I
No,
need.
that's not an efficient use of government resources either.
Not at all, because now he's got to spend 2 to 3 hours on the phone with me, and then he's got to call, and then magically we get an appointment in a couple weeks. But one or two things is the average person doesn't know that they can pick up their phone and call their congressman, and two, we shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Like it should be a more efficient system, and I don't hate the VA. I think the VA is really great, and I think there's some really good programs in the VA if you can get to them.
So you've started helping other families too,
yes.
right? And so tell me what how you kind of did. I mean, I understand how you started to gain this knowledge, unfortunately, and probably just got good at it and probably saw a need elsewhere. But let me tell you how you started helping others and what you've been doing over the last few years.
Yeah, exactly. I had firsthand knowledge and experience of what the system is doing and how to navigate it. And then I realized, okay, if you're going through this, and we have all of our combat operator friends, they're going through it too. And we would see guys just say, oh, I don't do the VA. And I'm like, what do you mean you're just not going to get your disability? He's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, that is insane. And then you would have people that are like, please help me. And so I went to a couple veteran events. We started really getting into the veteran event community in Jacksonville, and people would say, hey, they meet a combat veteran and they're like, oh, do you get disability, or do you have a VA claim, or do you see the VA? And then we would say, oh yeah, we go to the VA, and we have our 100%, and we know how to navigate the system. And people started really just asking me to help them. And then I worked briefly for a local nonprofit, and my job was basically to look at people's cases and see how we could help them further. And that's when I really gained a lot of knowledge on this is a nationwide problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because we would have guys that came in from Colorado, and I would try to get their medical records. At a normal circumstance, you would just be able to call and fax them to me. That is not how it works. And so we would start putting on these events, and I learned about Concerned Veterans of America in 2019, 2020-ish. I went to a Vietnam. They were doing an event for Vietnam veterans, and it was so amazing. And I got to learn about all the different things Concerned Veterans of America was doing. Yeah. And they learned about what we were doing in the community of really just kind of helping veterans. And this was really early on.
Was this here in Jacksonville?
This is here in Jacksonville. Right. Yeah. So Northeast Florida is kind of where it all kicked off. And they said, well, we would be welcome to partner with you to do some events where, we get to share Concerned Veterans of America. You get to share your story, and started helping people. And that's been the big thing the last, 7 years now, is empowering people to do it themselves and giving them the tools and resources where they can, because we shouldn't have to pay lawyers to get us disability claims, and we shouldn't have to call the congressman every single time we need help. Now, those are tools and resources that you may need to use, but there's a lot that you can do yourself. And so if I get a lot of spouses that reach out to me a lot and I don't know what to do next. So just for an example, last summer, a girl reached out to me on Instagram and said, my husband's about to retire, and we don't know what to do next, because unfortunately that still happens a lot where they get out. And now this guy spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. There should be I don't want to talk bad about it, but there should be better systems for some of the issues they're going to have post.
Well, we had a previous guest, also a veteran spouse, made the point, is they prepare them like crazy to go to war, but they're not prepared to come home from it.
No.
And, to get out of the military. Yeah. And it does seem to be something that's really lacking.
It is. And especially, I think, for our OEF and OIF guys. And don't get me wrong, I think all wars cause different issues, but OEF was really interesting, where the country wanted to support these guys coming back, and then our government was kind of let them down a little bit. And what do you do, right? You need them. And a lot of guys that came back were still young enough that they still had military career ahead of them, and they're still retiring young enough where they have another civilian career ahead of them. And we want them to be super successful. And so now, that spouse that just reached out to me, I said, okay, so as soon as he retires, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then if you're having issues, we call our congressman. And if that doesn't happen, then we call the committee. So we that's kind of what I'm doing now is, okay, send me your packet. Let me look at where I can help you. I've looked at, so people will send me their.
How many people do you think, or how many like families or veterans do you think you've been engaged in helping?
Oh, I've reviewed hundreds of cases
Wow,
in the
really?
last 7 years. Yeah. Almost to the point where I used to laugh about this, is like, I could look at someone's like the packet they send me in their DD-214 and I could tell them not how messed up they were, but in a sense of like what issues they're going to face. Because I've done the research in the war, about the war, and I've experienced what they're going to experience at the VA when they get out. And so, yeah, I've looked at hundreds of cases. Maybe families helped. I would maybe say 40 to 50. Like actually getting them the help they need.
Yeah.
But telling them to call their congressman, I probably tell them someone to call their congressman once a week. And if their congressman doesn't help them, I call my people and I'm like, okay, so Congressman so-and-so is not helping with the situation and I need you to do it.
They probably have your poster up inside like the legislative assistant's office.
All these Northeast Florida congressmen and congresswomen are probably so over me, and their staff. It's more their staff.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, hey, we got an incoming.
Well, I've worked on district staffs before, and DC staffs, members of Congress, and you do have some frequent flyers. But a lot of times, though, it is because it's the people who, whatever the interaction is with the federal government, people don't want to necessarily just go to their congressman.
No.
It's just that it's a cheat code when federal government and the bureaucracy is failing you.
100%.
They are supposed to be responsive to us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like a customer service type situation. And look, a lot of them are overwhelmed, a lot of them are, but a lot of them are also inefficient. And the congressman can cut through that a lot of times. And the district staff members, unfortunately, are the ones who are tasked with that. But it is a great service. I mean, everything from getting your passport to getting your immigration stuff done to getting your VA benefits effectively.
100%. And you touched on a really good thing. A really big thing there is the efficiency.
Yeah.
Where I say I love the VA is I've reviewed so many VA policies. I'm like, okay, this one's good. Like this works if it's executed correctly. And I have been on the phone with congressman staff and they're saying, this is the way it's supposed to go. And I'm like, this is not how it's being done though. Like I've reviewed the policy myself. I know this is how it's supposed to happen, but that's not what's being done. And so you have this really big organization, the VA, that trickles all the way down to all these VA offices across. And if you have someone in leadership that's like, we can do this and we can do that, maybe to cut time or whatever it is, that's where you start to lose that some of these processes and policies aren't happening the way they were designed to. Now, there are probably a few that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
But
so, you've interacted far more than most people with the VA. How do you think it could be improved?
Ooh,
we're making you the congressman now.
No, I know. So just a few things is one, the electronic data system. There should be an easier way to get records across the nation. And I don't necessarily know how to execute that because it takes time and money, but there's got to be a better way. We're in 2026, technology is very efficient because that's getting documents from, if somebody moves from one VA system to the next VA system, should be a little bit easier. I've learned that if we move or if we change a doctor, I want paper copies and I want a digital USB to make it easier for myself.
Yeah. Now
they're getting better about it if you use the VA system, but it's what I'm talking about, like when you go community care or if you switch VA systems. So that's probably one. And then I think the big one is reviewing policies and procedures at the national level and seeing how they're actually being executed at the actual local VAs, because I know there's a discrepancy in that 100%. The Northeast Florida VA system is really good. Now I live in DC. It's the headquarters is there, right? They're pretty good, right? They may have some longer wait times than I'd like, but they're pretty good. But you look at San Antonio VA system, they've had 2 suicides in less than 18 months in their parking lot.
Oh, so heartbreaking.
So there's obviously a personnel issue there that, why haven't we addressed that yet? Personnel should have been fired on the first suicide. Now you're telling me nothing's been done in the second one? That's the same VA system that my husband had a panic attack inside the VA and they asked him to leave.
Are you serious?
100%. I had to drive to San Antonio to pick him up because he was And he's a big, tough dude. He was done. And so I think personnel are a big one. You have to make sure that the people that are working actually care about what they're doing, because not every single case is super serious. I get that, right? Some people are there for something they've had their entire life. But some of these issues are really, really serious and really, really sensitive. And if you don't have serious, sensitive people, that's what you get. You get 2 suicides and panic attacks.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
No, I just think it's amazing that your husband had a panic attack in the facility where he's trying to get treatment, and they made him leave. I mean,
they
that's
said,
crazy.
To be fair, to their defense, they didn't say, "Sir, please leave," but they said, "Sir, you don't have an appointment today." Not like, "Sir, how can I help you?"
Yeah, isn't
Sir,
that kind of missing the point of what we're doing here?
Yeah, like, can I get you I don't know,
Right.
But do you need a provider right now? But yeah.
So, helped say 50 families.
Yeah.
Are there any? 2 questions. One is, are there any like really egregious stories that stick out to you, or are there any secondarily any stories that particularly like made your heart feel good, or that you were particularly proud of?
Yeah, actually, I think this most recent one, because I think it was a true testament to, she reached out before her husband retired. We talked a lot about what they were dealing with before he retired and what some of the things he was dealing with during active duty. And she was a therapist, right? So she's a very smart woman. She's a professional, and she was even lost. And I think it was really great that she was proactive and saying, I know this is going to be a hard road, and how can we make it a little bit easier? Because he was doing active duty therapy, and that ends right when he retires. Basically, the very next day, you start a new process. And so she was able to start getting things in place. And then I said, okay, and there was some issues that he was dealing with in active duty that they saw treatment for in active duty, that she was so concerned that they would maybe be a relapse when he retired. Right? It's a big life transition. You spend 24 years in the Marine Corps, and that's what you do.
Oh yeah, the majority of your life.
Yeah, and you wake up one day and you're not active duty Marine anymore. And where do you go? What do you do? And so she was concerned about a relapse there. And we had resources already in place of like, this is what you're going to do. If they can't get you in immediately, we're going to do this. And, and if that doesn't work, we're going to call a congressman, And I was like already ready, because I didn't want, my husband took 10 years.
Oh my.
To get into the TBI clinic.
Wow.
Okay, so multiple traumatic brain injuries.
So is that from the time he got out?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's such
We did not get neurology until 2022, and we actually just got into the DC TBI clinic last year.
And what is TBI?
Traumatic brain injuries. Yep. And
gosh, I'm so sorry.
He retired in 2012.
That's just heartbreaking. I mean, to be honest, because there's a lot of people who aren't as resilient as you and your husband.
Oh no.
There's unfortunately, we have this epidemic of in the active duty and the veterans community of suicide.
Yeah.
And the fact that you guys were able to tough it out and had you there as a caregiver and a support, but my gosh, that's testing the limits.
Yeah. But I said that earlier, a lot of these guys, they're like, I'm just not going to do this. I'm just not going to, because they're like, why do I have to fight for what I fought for?
Right.
And so I think that story, I actually just texted her a few weeks ago and said, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are things going? And she's like, things are actually really good. They are, he's got a job. There was no serious relapse, right? He's in therapy, and it didn't take 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been less than a year since he retired. And so that's really amazing.
Yeah. That is, man, what an improvement over what you guys lived through.
Yeah. And I think for me is I know the system's broken, and I'm not going to fix the system overnight. Right. And even though I tag Secretary Collins in everything I do, nice. his media staff is probably tired of me too. I'm just excited that it didn't take 10 years.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess that's something, but no, that is exciting. It's a real improvement. It's dramatic improvement.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't, what I know about you, it doesn't surprise me that you you ran towards the problem. I mean, so you're a firefighter originally, right?
Yes.
Just tell me a little bit about that. Like, how'd you end up doing that?
Yeah. I actually, in high school, I'm a very don't tell me I can't do something and then I'm going to go do it. And I wasn't the most physically fit in high school, but I loved military and the first responders. And I originally thought I was going to join the military and that'd be my career for the rest of my life. And I had some friends that were firefighters. And I told somebody that I really looked up to that I think I'm going to join the fire department. He's like, you'll never make it. You're not, that's not you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went through the fire academy and became an EMT. And I did that for 8 years.
Wow.
And I loved it, though. The only reason I left is my husband retired from the Marine Corps and life kind of changed a little bit.
Sure.
But, oh no, I loved being a firefighter. And I got to help people in real time. I got to experience a lot of different things. And I was... it was a really great time, I think. And I became physically fit. I had a 6.5 minute mile by the time I came out of the academy.
Saying something.
Yes.
All right. Well, it just seems to me you're a person who, in your own way, has dedicated your life to service.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you're inspired by it. You love it. You want to help, but it's like you're helping people, whether it's saving their lives, I guess, in that case, or saving their lives in a different way. I mean, in some cases, I'm sure, what we see in the veteran community is so sad, and with the epidemic of suicide, that you're actually saving people's lives by helping them get the help that they need.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, clearing out the bureaucratic hurdles that we see. I mean, we talk about that a lot on the show with different policies and stuff, but this is actually, a lot of them are consequential, but in this case, you're talking about really people's lives.
100%. And you're talking about generations, right?
Yeah.
Like my husband has 3 boys. So, and I have a great relationship with all of them. And we've been able to see as their dad gets better, as he heals, as he's able to get some of these appointments, he's able to do more physically. Like, had they not had a dad that either checked out via suicide or was unable to do these things, they're not getting a good quality of life. And how is that going to affect their kids?
Yeah.
So we're talking generational things that we're changing. And I have so many friends, unfortunately, it really is unfortunate that their husbands did commit suicide.
Oh.
And it's almost like, I have one good friend that comes to mind, and her husband, he did it and he thought he was helping his family, right? That he didn't want, and it's so unfortunate, right? Because a baby didn't get to grow up with their dad, and he'll never even know his dad. And the guys that choose not to commit suicide, they are choosing a life that could be really suffering, unfortunately. And I hate that, because I've seen the guys that suffer from not committing suicide. And you say, thank you for not committing suicide. And then what do we do? Like, how do we help them?
We make it harder for them.
We make it harder for them. And, and it's so sad. And so it's like quality of life.
Yeah.
The VA, these anti-suicide campaigns are fantastic. I never want to have to hear about another, suicide again. But what's the campaign to help them when they choose not to commit suicide?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I was just talking to somebody for a Memorial Day show, and that has already aired now, and it's so sad. You can't really talk about the veteran community right now without talking about the suicide epidemic, because it's so important and so prevalent. So it has to be something that our community groups, family support systems, and the government need to care deeply about and all take action on.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that I have a feeling you're probably going to do more things to service in the future, but from firefighter to support system, helping people navigate the VA, and who knows what else is in front of you.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I really, Kaitlin, I appreciate you coming on the show, kind of sharing your life experience and your husband's, and hopefully giving some inspiration to folks too, and maybe some more congressmen will get some calls.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Well, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow us on social media like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take them for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.